Namaskar. Welcome to Satsang today. So for today, I wanted to speak about self-inquiry, how to start this process of self-inquiry, because everybody tells you to inquire and look at who we are or what this I am is we are speaking of. And the simplest step into oneness is the first step. And it is my belief that you don't even need a spiritual or religious background to take that step, to understand and make that step. It starts with being in your natural state. And basically that's such a straightforward message that even it's possible to share that with children. And they're usually pretty happy to be in this state where they can just be themselves and exist and play without rules or attachments. So basically, if you just stay like that in this natural state, you will notice that everything will become effortless or easier for everyone, by the way. And the thing is, the state of, or the sense of I am or I exist is basic, right? It's not something that somebody had to teach you or somebody had to tell you. But when this sense I am combines itself or becomes associated with other concepts, other states of being, other ideas, then what happens is that view of I am becomes blurred. These states seem to attach themselves, become part of that what I am is. And basically, those attachments are not natural to who we are or what we are. And the thing is, this happens from a very young age, like I said before. We grab a lot of false assumptions about the world, about life, and about exactly who we are living this life. And the concept of I am the body is this core belief we adopt very early on. And once we have adopted this basic idea, I am the body, and we accepted this as what we are or who we are even, other concepts now have the chance to be poured on top of that, layer upon layer, like I'm a teacher, I'm a student, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm patient, I am spiritual, I am interesting, I am this, I am such, I am so. And what happens is that these things form what is known as the unique personal experience, the unique personal identity that is taking shape. And mostly we assume that this identity is an unquestionable, written in stone fact. And yet those acquired beliefs are not part of the original nature. They're not part of who you are. See, we take ourselves to be a particular body with this unique personality. And with that personality and with that perspective, we live our lives. But you know, if you take this person identity to be true, you perceive yourself as a separate entity in the world with many other separate entities and objects, things going on and happening. And there are countless of nuances, countless layers of this personality that we could list. And this list could go on to forever. I am my tendencies, these are my dreams, these are my belongings, this is my feelings, this is my experience. Here are all the diplomas I have to prove that I am what I am. I'm this kind of person. See, all these concepts are piling up, and all what we actually refer to as being us, as being ours, our body, our mind, our emotions, are just layers upon layers upon layers on top of that, what we essentially are. So this might sound like a lot, but let's break it down. See, everything you can perceive comes and goes. And that includes your own body. And one time you're looking at time and objects, thoughts and emotions through the senses. Sometimes you are able to observe everything that is perceived as life, as manifestation. And you are able to look at that through a different sense. But if you look at it with your eyes, you only see one part of it, right? And behind those eyes, there's the realm of thought, the memories, the emotions. And all these things are perceived with a different kind of vision. They are not perceived with the physical eyes that turn outward, but they are perceived with inner perception. Your sense of being a particular person is also perceived. So it doesn't really matter whether the object of perception is physical and thus can be measured by form, size, shape, color, whatever, or whether what is perceived is something more subtle, like thought, feeling, emotion, sensations. All of these things are phenomena. And it's the sense of I that is perceiving them. See, first, I must be there. And learn every language that you want to learn, whether it's a dead language like Sanskrit or a modern language. Every linguistical effort you will make will begin with the word I, because it's impossible to make sentences without it. So first, I must be there. And in a way, you could say I is the password to this enormous, mighty game that we call existence. Because only after this I comes you and everything else, like world, family, friends, education, religion, desires, and so on. So now the question must be asked, what does that I imply? Who or what is that I? You see, when questions like these are asked, don't look for this verbal or mental answer. Don't trust too much in the mind and in learned knowledge. Best look inward and see what these words point to. Because the teachings or the non-dual idea of Advaita invites you to find out for yourself what the meaning of this I is, what this I really is. And whether it is what you imagine it to be. See, most people have a rather strong sense of being individuals. And with that comes the conviction that they determine their own experiences. And they are familiar with their own realities. And even though that might be true to a certain extent, it's only a lesser and more relative truth. The greater truth, the actual truth, is that you are the awareness in which the idea of yourself living alive and having an awareness is appearing. So, in other words, the person we take ourselves to be is nothing but an idea emerging in consciousness as an expression of that consciousness. And the funny thing is that this idea has another idea about itself. For example, it starts out with the I. Then we draw the conclusion that we exist, which leads us to the I am. Then, as we grow up, there will begin, this realization will begin to grow that says, I am this body. And when we get older, we realize that this body has a consciousness. And when we turn 18, we think that this me that has a body with a consciousness has this independent life to live. And you know, it reminds me of this little story that could be a good idea to illustrate this confusion. And there's this man sitting in the doctor's waiting room. And he has a frog sticking out of the side of his head. When it's his turn, the nurse accompanies him to the doctor's office. The doctor looks at the man and says, so what's going on here? The frog replies, well, doc, it started out last week as a small lump on my bottom, and it just kept growing bigger and bigger. You see? Aren't you surprised? The frog replied. So much in our life is based on this conditioned thinking that we insist on believing. What we have brought up to believe is we have consciousness. I tell you right now, that's rubbish. I say no. At the level of the body, mind, and the personality, we are the product and expression of that consciousness. But because our cultural conditioning and our inherited ways of thinking all base upon the idea of that very personhood, this simple assertion, I have just made, namely that each of us as a person is the expression of consciousness rather than its creator or controller, seems evasive, elusive even. And the thing is, we keep insisting that we just don't get it. There are some people that even experience a kind of stress or nausea because they were not used thinking like this. We are accustomed to a certain way of thinking, but there are ways of understanding that bypass that personal thinking mind, and they are profound in their impact. See, mind is natural, intuitive, and its function is a higher power than the personal mind mode. The natural mind, you could say, operates in a much broader way. It's not obsessed with activity or identity. It's clean and clear. So life simply unfolds. The natural mind is in a state of grace. And when you are established in and as this self, whatever is going to happen will just spontaneously rise out of that oneness. If you study and learn as a person, you can only function as a person. Maybe a great person or a skilled person. But still you are limited by this persona you have created. Once you awaken to the truth, you start moving as a whole environment. When something arises that needs to be done, that need is recognized. And the movement to fulfill that need begins. And other streams join in until it becomes a river. See, when and how these forces join together, then you are actually looking at this whole matrix of life and seeing that is the one doing it all. And this time you are not merely thinking it. You are actually seeing it with those eyes. And this is the moment, this is the realization of I am that. Tat Tvam Asi. At this point, let's allow some space for understanding to happen without the interference of the logical mind. Your mind cannot take you there. Just be empty without relating to any thoughts, intention, or identity. Like this, beyond mind's efforts, you will stand a chance of discovering the naturalness of life and of being. I am going to leave you today with these thoughts. Maybe you can choose to sit silent and meditate upon the concept of I, or dropping all the concepts that are not I. So until next time, always be present. Namaskar.